Alrighty. Welcome to the Monday, November 23rd, 2020 regular trustee meeting. If you can stand, we'd appreciate if you would pledge allegiance with us. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda. Is there any corrections or changes to the agenda?
Yes, Board, I have two changes for this evening. For pre-scheduled speaker, Ohio Task Force 1. This was bumped from the last meeting when we did the promotions. And under new business, last bullet, architect services for the township.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the November 23rd, 2020 meeting.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Krutz, Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $371,594.93 for the November 18th, 2020 payroll.
Second.
Trustee Krutz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payment listing reports in the amount of $635,723.23 for warrants through November 20th, 2020.
Second, just with discussion, Mr. Rushing, that seems higher than normal.
That's due. Give me a moment. We processed the HSI security system invoice that was for $121,868.85. That was for the access and control improvements that the board authorized. And then in addition to that, in there as well is our medical mutual invoice for $125,370.02. So those two, yes.
We have minutes.
Oh,
Oops, sorry.
Vote on it.
Sorry. Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Krutz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes. Okay. We have minutes from the.
Are you able to flip the view on the screen?
Everything's showing up, so
Okay, all I see is a logo.
yeah, there shouldn't be a. We see you, and
The whole room.
Did you actually click on a user? Did you?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
yeah, because we can see the trustee meeting room in the lower right corner.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
We have minutes from the November 9th, 2020 regular trustee meeting. Were there any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 9th, 2020 regular trustee meeting.
Second.
Trustee Krutz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes. Thank you. We're at a time at the meeting where we have available for any citizen to speak. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes apiece. Is there anyone wanting to speak today? Seeing none, we'll move on to the pre-scheduled speaker, Ohio Task Force 1.
Thank you, Board. As it's our custom, we have several members on the Ohio Task Force 1, and when Ohio Task Force 1 is a state and also a federal asset, also a local asset if we need them here locally. We have several members from the department that is trained. And after each federal deployment, we ask them to come back as it is a program that you support. You also support the members on the team, and we like to present to you the deployment and how they, where they went. I'm going to share the screen so we can see it. And today we have Lieutenant Doug Ransdell. So once I get this set up, I'll turn it over to the Lieutenant.
Thank you, Board.
Hold on one second, Doug.
Okay.
If you got anything to pre-talk, you can go ahead and do that while I set this up.
Well, just as Mr. Zaharieff has said that you guys sponsor a handful of people within the team or within the department. There's currently 6 of us that are on the rescue team, and then we also have Lieutenant Fothergill, he's a dog handler, and then Lieutenant Arndt is going to become a hazmat specialist on the team also. So I can probably speak for everybody on the team. Thank you very much for sponsoring us. That's an opportunity and some good training, good things that we get to go out and do. This is the second deployment that we deployed on in 2020. Where we go with Hurricane Delta, it was actually hit with Hurricane Laura about 6 weeks previous, about 13 miles east of where we went. We staged ours just quickly. We staged ours in Baton Rouge and then moved around to Port Charles. It's where we did a lot of our data calculations and picked up a lot of information for FEMA. So I just kind of put together a slideshow as I did with Hurricane Matthew in 2016. I'm not really sure who came for Hurricane Laura, but this is kind of, I'll just go down kind of how we go about. We get the day before we start hearing things with FEMA, they call us, find out who can pre-roster. We get authorization from Chief Vandenboss and our people, and we pre-roster. They put us on a roster, pick who they want to go. We get activation orders here. That's what those look like. And then ours happened on a Wednesday. So around Wednesday morning, afternoon, early afternoon, we got an order of, hey, be at the warehouse at this time. So the next slide, this was us being sworn in right around 11 o'clock at night. We were getting ready to hit the road. Our new warehouse is the old Emory building at the airport, Vandalia Airport, Dayton International Airport. It's about a 50,000 square foot building that we now occupy instead of the old Kettering headquarters that was branched off with the fire department. So that was us getting sworn in. Just, you know, late at night, they swear us in as FEMA officers. We're now federal employees. So then this here, these are we call them Force Patrol. They're U.S. Marshals. They are tasked with us, to us, so everywhere we go, they go with us as our police, basically, personal security. These guys were from all over. There were a couple from Oregon, California, Florida. They're pretty much from all over, so it's really interesting to get to sit and talk to those guys too and hear their story, as it is with our team, because we have people from Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Indiana, all on Ohio Task Force 1. So that's kind of interesting in itself. And then, so that night we drove, this was our first stop. This is an old abandoned mall in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This picture over on the left that's our cache of vehicles, Ohio Task Force 1 in the first 3 rows, and then over in the far left is Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was Tennessee. Upper right-hand corner is Florida, and then parts of Indiana. Indiana kind of got to go and play a little bit sooner than we did. It kind of worked out great. Our planning team of FEMA, you know, they have all this set up before we even hit the road. Like, they know where we're going, what they're going to do for food, what they're going to do for housing for the most part. But as you can tell, this is just an abandoned, you know, mall, if you will, and that is our sleeping arrangements there in the lower right-hand corner. So we get sleeping bags and a cot. Kind of primitive, but it's really neat, and you know, everybody that I'm with on the team, we enjoy doing that kind of stuff. It builds camaraderie, really. So then, you know, you can't go somewhere without, you know, you don't just get to sit around all the time. So daily trainings, we're rescue, we're there for a water, as a water team. So each day we got the boats and tried to train as much as we could on the boats, getting the boats off of the trailers, putting the motors on the boats, just everybody knowing exactly what our job was if we were to deploy out and get put in the water. And then we had some data collection, because we have a newer app, if you will, for data collection, which is Survey 123, and we're starting to use that more in the fire department also. But a few slides down, you'll actually see how much data we actually captured.
Oh, we're losing my, hold on one second. Oh, we lost connection. Go ahead, Doug, I'll work on it if you want.
So we the night that night we got staged into that parking lot, we were getting ready to go to bed. We had eaten dinner. They got a catering company, a barbecue company, to come out with their trailer and their smoke machines and all that, and that's who kind of followed us around for the whole deployment and fed us. That night, we ended up getting within a 2-hour time limit. We packed up all of our stuff that we could, and we headed to Port Charles, and spent the night there in the vans. This is just another part of the daily trainings. The doc talked to us. We went through medical twice a day, morning and evening. So in the mornings, they checked our blood pressure, asked us if we had any symptoms, anything like that, and then did the same thing in the evening, because COVID is, obviously, it's everywhere. They're really, really suspect about it out there, and we wore our masks all the time. About the only time we didn't do it is if we were eating, drinking, things like that. Lake Charles, I'm sorry. So this is where we ended up spending the night. That picture up in the upper left corner there, the rescue teams actually slept in the trucks, in the van, in our water suits. We all woke up like that, thinking we were getting ready to go to work when we got there. We got there, they told us to stand down, just hang tight until morning, regrouped, and then from here we ended up going out and just doing a bunch of data collection. Had about, I think they had like 15 different squads going out doing this area. Go to the next screen there. Just another picture of what we went into that night. Staying. This was a building that's actually plywood in those windows. That was majority of that was from Hurricane Laura, and then some of it up in the upper corners was Hurricane Delta. We drove through the hurricane when we were coming to Lake Charles. Planning team, just a sign of that building. It's like an office building, and then we all walked over to the actual lake and kind of just took it in for a couple minutes, because we weren't really sure at that point if we were going to get to work. That's one of the biggest questions when we go out. We do all this training, get ready to do something, and then we get there and it's, hurry up and wait, and you hope and pray you get to go, but you don't really want to, you don't want anybody to get hurt, obviously. But our planning team does pretty good. This is us Saturday night moving into the airport. We got to sleep under the stars. It was a makeshift, hurry up and get there, set up. So they got the cots. They kind of pinned us in with the trucks, and then we got to sleep under the stars. That was kind of cool, actually. Woke up kind of wet. It didn't rain on us, but the sleeping bags were all wet. But it was kind of nice to wake up in the morning like that. We did that night. We left this next morning. Go ahead and go to the next one, sir. So that was us waking up. We ate breakfast. We kind of moved the cots out of the way and let the logistics guy get ready to put tents up. And then we were given different maps, different squads, different teams were given different maps. And we ended up going out and driving different neighborhoods and getting this data collection. We had actually, on Hurricane Delta, we actually had to take a picture of every structure that we looked at. We never actually got out of the truck unless we thought there was a hazard of some sort, generator in the garage, generator too close to a structure, somebody, in distress that we would find. That was about the only time we exited the vehicle, but we did have to get pictures of all the different structures. So this is that data collection. The survey 123 is what FEMA is moving towards now. You can capture a lot more information than trying to do the old iron sight GPS unit. You can go into there and collect 4 or 5 different checkoffs, if you will, which then go into the collector app over on the left, which also goes into quick capture. So those 3 kind of work together. The other ones are some just kind of like just navigation that we utilize. The task force has moved into giving iPads and iPhones for that kind of stuff. We can use our own personal, but they give us those in case we want to use those and not jeopardize our own. So that's what it kind of looks like when we send our information back to the planning committee. This was one of the guys in my squad. He just taken a picture of a structure. We kind of look at it. They wanted all of them to be damaged, obviously, because that's an easier way to mark it through FEMA. FEMA will take a better look at it. But as a neighborhood, you see on the left, that's what that looks like. And then in the middle, if you zoom into it a little bit, which you can't, that's what that represents. That's kind of what it looks like there. So every one of those little markers is a picture or a mark of something with that structure. These are some just damage structures that we saw. That was the football field, the high school football field where we staged throughout the day. That was one of our booths, basically, or a forward operating base. The stuff down here, we saw a lot of this down in the lower right corner. That's somebody's house from Hurricane Laura that was demolished, so they just pushed it out to the street, and they're hoping the city comes and picks it up. The one up there, I think it kind of says 2020 sucks, the hurricanes, different things like that, but you can go to the next one, sir. Just some more damage. And a lot of this is old damage, but a lot of it's new. The middle picture there, the roof, they had just got the roof to where they were getting ready to put shingles on it, and then Hurricane Delta came through and took it out to that point there. So there were a lot of people that had just gotten insurance claims taken care of, were getting ready to get their stuff back in order, and ended up getting demolished again. Same thing, you can keep going through there if you like. So one of the big things for us this time was decon. How do you decon when you're going back to your base at night when you're done and you've been out in the field? Our hazmat team was on point with decon. They would decon us personally. We'd get out of the vehicle when we got there. They'd decon us. We wouldn't get back in the vehicle. They would take the vehicle from there, completely clean the inside of it, wash the outside of it, and sanitize the inside, and then we'd get our vehicle back. That was the boot washing station, and then there's the vehicle washing station. So if you left the boot, no matter if you were just going to Walmart to get whatever, you were coming back and going through this procedure here. A little different than before. So our first day leaving out and going to check neighborhoods and things like that, where those tents are, that's where our cots were. So we got back and logistics had set up 2 different tents for us. And then inside there had set up our cots, double or bunk bed style. And we all, obviously, the night that we got there and was going through processing, we all got a COVID test. They were really strict the first 12 hours of no matter what you're doing, you have to wear your mask, even if you're eating between bites, whatever. If you're doing anything, you have to wear a mask until they got test results back. We did have one person test positive, had no idea he was even positive, didn't have symptoms. He was a truck driver himself and the guy he was with. They were demobbed and sent home. We were in Baton Rouge at the time, and they sent 2 other people to us. So we really were trying to be mindful of the social distancing and that the bunk beds were kind of questionable, but at the end of the day, they said that, with the precautions that we were taking personally, that they were okay with it. So then this is, that was the squad I was on, and this is just a little brief overview of how we got home. We took a little bit longer of a route so that we didn't have to isolate when we got back or quarantine when we got back due to CDC's recommendations and that. And then, so I think overall it took us 3 days to get home. Overall, we marked 28,000. Go back to that real quick if you would. Overall, we marked 28,000 structures in the 9 days that we were down there. And Ohio Task Force 1, with 2 squads of rescue and 3 squads of hazmat and logistics, we ended up doing 55%. Ohio Task Force 1 collected 55% of all FEMA waypoints during Hurricane Delta.
And
We
a
get,
waypoint is,
say again?
a waypoint is,
The little markings on the map
okay,
with the survey 1, 2, 3. So throughout I think ended up being 3 days, 3.5 days that we were doing it. Our last day that we actually went out and did waypoints, they had us redoing some of the waypoints that they didn't get enough information on. So, but overall, Ohio, even with Laura and Hurricane, I can't remember the exact names of the hurricanes from last year, but Ohio Task Force 1 has always been up there in the top, if not the top. It's always been the top 3 people, 3 groups that are collecting all the information. Everybody on our team, our leaders on our team, they're all very, very committed to having Ohio Task Force 1 be number 1. And then so in the days after, we did all this to not get quarantined. 3 days after. So to back up a little bit, we had 2 squads on the water, two water squads. One water squad, when we got to Lake Charles Regional Airport, one water squad went to a prison north of us about an hour and a half and stayed there for 3 days. They made arrangements for them to stay, not be around the prisoners, COVID reasons. They get back. They're back for 2 days. We demob, come home. We take the route, we come home so that we don't have to quarantine, blah, blah, blah. 2 days after that, we get text messages that says the whole team's going to quarantine because ended up being 5 of the 8 in the other squad that went to the prison tested positive. Came down 2 days after we got home. 2 days after that, they come down with symptoms. Ended up being 5 of the 8 ended up testing positive. So they quarantined the whole team until the end of October. Put Ohio Task Force 1 out of service until the end of the month, and then we all rehabbed and got everything back together, and now we're deployable again. There was a total of with Hurricane Iota now, I think it was a total of 36 hurricanes this year named that got into the Greek alphabet. It's never done that. They've never had 30-something hurricanes. Louisiana was hit, I think 2 or 3 times. The islands they're being demolished. It's not going to get any worse, it's not going to get any better. You're going to see Ohio Task Force 1 over the next few years. They're going to be going out from June to November, December, especially with Mother Nature doing the flip-flop and the change that it's doing. So, but there again, Lieutenant Harmon was with me. She's on 3rd Platoon at Station 63. We actually were in the squad together. We were in the same truck. We pretty much were together nonstop for 9 days. And when I found out I was doing this, she wanted to be here. Totally forgot because when it got rescheduled from the 9th to today, she had forgot about it. And but yeah, she was down there with me also. And there again, I speak for the whole team. We all appreciate everything that you guys do for allowing us to do this, because we bring a lot of the disciplines that we learn there. We bring technique back to here and try to utilize it in the rescue, in the ladder, and just in day-to-day fire tactics. So I can't say thanks enough, and I would assume that the other people on the team are the same way. So we really do appreciate it.
in the, while you were there this time, you did more data collection than you did boats helping people? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah. So they break it down. There was just a lot of destruction this time. The water team that got to go up north, they were actually in areas where they got to go out in boat missions and check structures, checking on people that don't have day-to-day ability to
Right.
get into town because they're flooded. As far as rescues, we didn't really facilitate any rescues on this one here. It was more of a data collection and checking on. I talked to several people that, generators were too close, different things like that, but no actual rescues. So, you guys have any other questions?
Any other questions?
I didn't have any other questions. It's really a neat opportunity for you guys, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah. It's something to have police escort to the Ohio line when we leave, and then to get down there and be assigned to Force Pro and then follow us. People are always asking us, what we're doing, or a lot of that. So you're explaining all the time, but it's worth it. It truly is.
And you were not put in any danger as far as, besides COVID, but
No, not this one. And
homes or anything ran out of the house or
yeah,
anything like that?
no, Force Pro is really good at taking care of that really quick. But-
Mr. Kretz, do you have any questions?
As far as the grid mapping and GIS, I assume, system that you use when you're mapping all of these different coordinates and doing your search and recording your results, is that the same system that you used during the tornado, or is it a different system?
It's a different system. However, as Lieutenant Ransdale said, that this is being pushed out by FEMA, so they always get the cool tools first, and then they trickle down to the local jurisdictions. So it's very similar in regards to the GIS data. So anything that we collect here locally with the software we used for the tornado response could be uploaded to the FEMA system, and that's exactly what we did during the tornado deployment.
Great, thank you. Thanks for going, glad you were safe.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to
Thank you.
report.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, and I think
Yep.
the citizens that are watching appreciate that too, to see what we're doing and
Definitely.
getting the feedback on what's happening in other communities.
Yeah.
So thank you, and please generate that information out to your team.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lieutenant.
sure.
You're good.
Have a good evening.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Appears we have no old business, new business. Mr. Zahari.
Thank you, Board. First item is on page 18 of your packet. This would be the committee that oversaw the IT RFPs. There's a little memo from the chief who kind of chaired the committee for the township. They also have a recommendation here. Chief's on here to answer any questions. Just full disclosure, myself and Chief Heister had to recuse ourselves because we knew individuals on the committee. So neither one of us served on this committee and had no input onto the committee. So the committee is making a straight recommendation to the Board of Township Trustees. Chief's on here to answer any questions. We do have a motion to authorize me to go, also negotiate an agreement that will still have to come back before the board. We are on a time crunch because our current vendor did not submit an RFP to continue as our vendor. So,
And when do they end?
if you approve negotiations tonight, then we'll give a notice to a 90-day notice. However, since Back to Business did not put a bid in, it's pretty much a 90-day notice, but they're going to work with us to help transition and anything we need. So
Great.
they've even offered to sit down with the new IT company if we can come to an agreement on regards to pricing and everything else. So they're being very helpful in regards to the transition.
Does anyone have any questions to the chief regarding this committee report?
I have a question. As far as the scoring system, so you've noted that the one that the contractors essentially scored a 6 out of 6, but the company that the committee is recommending scored a 3 out of 6. So what were the 3 areas that they did not
clear, they were third of six as opposed to sixth of six in ranking.
Okay.
The scoring itself was a little bit different. There were about 70 or 80 individual individual items in the spec that they were scored against. Some of them were just did they provide it or not, and some of them were how well do you believe they would provide it. So what you're seeing there is the ranking of the net score. I don't have the scores in front of me. I can look them up if you'd like. For what it's worth, none of them scored 100%. So they all had some sort of deficiency. The ones that scored the lowest, so for example, 6 out of 6, they either had a significant number of deficiencies, or they scored low in the qualitative sections, or actually would have ended up occurring as a combination of both of those.
Okay. And so essentially the group that you're recommending hit all of the target services that you requested. Essentially there was
they had the most responses.
they had the most, I should say.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I was gonna ask that too.
Any other?
I should have said the ranking instead of scoring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was trying to verify that, so thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I don't believe I had any other questions.
Okay. I don't either. Someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to authorize the township administrator to negotiate an agreement for IT services with Peargen Solutions.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Walls.
Yes. I want to thank would you please, Chief, thank the committee for taking the time to meet together and go through this review and recommendation.
Yes, ma'am, and actually we have two of the members on with Mr. Grogan, Mr. Parks, and I'll pass it on to our participant from zoning commission. So thank you, appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item on the agenda is the Employee Recognition Program Committee. Obviously, we put nothing in the packet because we like to surprise the Employee of the Year. Ed Amrine's on here as the chair of the committee. The committee is completely employee represented, and the committee recommends to the board all departments, including the fiscal office, have a representation on the committee. Ed is even as a part-timer for the township now. He is continued to be the chair of the committee. So I'll turn it over to Ed.
Good afternoon, everyone. The committee met last week and made a unanimous choice to recommend John Schroeder, a road foreman from the road department, to you as Employee of the Year. I will read from a statement that the committee has written about John and why he was selected. John Schroeder began his public service career with Beavercreek Township in 1992 as a volunteer firefighter and paramedic, and was hired full-time in 1996 in the road department. John never hesitated to accept additional responsibilities and rose steadily in the department. He was promoted to his current position of road foreman in 2005. The range of John's responsibilities would bring a lesser person to tears. Supervisor, leader, building and equipment maintenance, road maintenance, including snow removal and high water response, subdivision and other construction oversight, record storage and disposal, furniture assembly, removal and disposal, recycling management, assisting the fiscal office with the cemetery operations, and soon, scenic river debris removal. All of this is normal activity for John and his crew, but wait, there's really so much more. As we all know, 2020 has been a year unlike any changes in the township have significantly ramped up the demands made on John and his crew. This year, there is new staff in the fiscal office, community development and risk department, administrator's office, and fire operations. Along with retirements and promotions, this means that office relocations have become something of a which always means running cables, and it usually means moving walls in the building. A new phone system, lots of new furniture and computing equipment, a major communications tower upgrade, parking lot improvements, and the list goes on. We who work in the Township Administration Building have seen more of John and his crew this year than ever before, and it all has been managed with an understated, no big deal attitude and a wry sense of humor that frankly has made it easier for all of us. So, if it wasn't obvious before, and it was to many of us, it's now abundantly clear that John Schroeder occupies a keystone position of leadership in Beavercreek Township, and that he discharges his duties with uncommon grace and good humor. For these reasons and more, the Employee Recognition Committee is pleased to unanimously recommend John Schroeder to the Board of Trustees to be named the Beavercreek Township Employee of the Year. I believe you have a resolution in your packet, or before you, to that effect. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
We do have a resolution. What's going to be different this year, just with COVID, I don't know what the chamber has planned for their breakfast, so we will, much like we did last time, we've taken over the plaque since the chamber, so we'll provide a plaque as well, and we'll do something hopefully later in the year if the chamber event gets canceled or moves to a different kind of platform.
Thank you.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution to name John Schroeder to be the 2020 Beavercreek Township Employee of the Year. Whereas the Beavercreek Township Board of Township Trustees has established an Employee Recognition Committee, and whereas the Employee Recognition Committee has established a process for the nomination and selection of one employee each year to be recognized by Beavercreek Township as the Township Employee of the Year. And whereas for 2020, following that selection process, the Employee Recognition Committee has made a unanimous recommendation to the Board of Township Trustees. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, Ohio, hereby declares that John Schroeder be recognized by the Beavercreek Township as the Beavercreek Township Employee of the Year. And be it further resolved that all formal actions of the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution are being adopted at a duly called and authorized open meeting of the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township on the date set forth above, such meeting being duly called pursuant to a notice stating the time, place, and purpose of the meeting, and that all deliberations of the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees and of any of their committees that result in such formal action are in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Ed, for continuing to be the chair of the committee.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 19 of your packet. This is a COVID-19 purchase. You've seen some of this before. We went to a rugged tablet system for our firefighters. This is to finish the process, and we knew that we were getting another round of COVID money, so we focused on the frontline first responders, our firefighters, and the medic units and engines. And now we're going to finish the tablet project out with the third round of the COVID money, which will be all the chief officer positions and anyone who runs as the chief officer. So, budget justification starts on page 19, with a motion on page 20. This would, Mr. Rushing and I have been working on some COVID reporting. We're updating it every 2 weeks because we're going to reimburse the funds from COVID for COVID leave back to the road, general, and fire. So as of the report that I issued to Mr. Rushing on last Thursday, the balance of this, the 2905 COVID fund is about $65,000. We do have another purchase that is a joint project for the CAD system that will be coming to the board in the 12th between the city of Xenia, Fairborn, and us related to the New World CAD system. And then we have a resolution Mr. Rushing is going to talk about under fiscal office. They'll finish out the COVID-19. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Chief's on here as well to answer any questions. If there's no questions, there's a motion on page 20.
I'll make a motion to approve a purchase request 20-fire-0410 to Midwest Public Safety LLC for rugged tablet computers in the amount not to exceed $27,996 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 22 of your packet. It's surplus. This will be some of the fire gear. We are setting aside some of the fire gear for our Explorer program. And obviously, this is gear that cannot be used, so we give it to the Explorers because they cannot go into an unsafe environment or a fire. So there is a complete list on page 23. You can pass the resolution as presented.
Any questions regarding this resolution?
I had none.
I make a motion adopting a resolution finding certain township equipment to be surplus and to dispose of it as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. This was, next item is architecture services for the township. This is, as the board knows, we put out an RFP to go ahead and look for an architect firm for Station 66. Some of the road modifications related to Station 66, as well as modification of road and engineering a road between Valley Road and Indian Ripple, also related to Station 66. Potentially a training center down the road at the end of the levy cycle, and potentially additional services for the township regarding additional buildings. There was a committee established to evaluate the 11 responses received from architect firms. The committee was myself, Chief Vandenboss, Chief Heaster, and from the community we had Larry Phillips as a resident and business owner in the township, and we had a member of Dave Ross from the airport board who sat on there. We evaluated it, scoring sheet, and the committee is recommending moving forward with App Architecture. Very familiar name as well because they were involved in Station 65 as well. What I'm recommending tonight is that we go ahead and authorize me to negotiate a contract with App Architecture. That's the actual contract has to come back. As the board is also aware, when we put the RFP out, we also put out the approved agreement. Or that go out to all of them. So App Architecture had no changes from what we had approved by our legal department or our legal staff, and that the board approved to go out. So right now, all that you're authorizing me to do is actually negotiate pricing for the various projects. I'll be happy to answer any questions. To kind of piggyback on what the chief said, no one got 100 on the scoring. App architecture had an 89.3%, which was the highest regarding the scores.
Any comments from the board? I'd like to make one comment, Mr. Zaharia.
Yes.
I want to compliment you and staff on reaching citizens, business people, and people that were going to be directly related to this at the airport board. And we've done that with the other committees tonight. And I think it's important for the citizens to note that just staff is not making recommendations. We're getting public involvement. And I think that's real important when we're spending money and changing some aspects of the township. So I compliment your leadership style in involving other members of our community to solicit their opinions and have a weigh-in on what's happening in the township. Thank you.
And I appreciate that, and I want to kind of echo that, with especially to the two citizens that were served on the board. Just one of the RFPs we got back was over 144 pages, and we had 11 RFPs returned. So that was a lot of reading, not only for staff, but that's what you ask us to do. But for the citizens that volunteered, that was a lot of reading and a lot of effort for them, plus meeting in the room and going through everybody's scores. So I appreciate that.
Can we give them a T-shirt or something?
We'll work on something. Yeah. yeah.
A fire hat or
Yeah.
a badge. All right, well, thank you very much.
Yep. I have a motion there for you.
I move to authorize the township administrator to negotiate an agreement for architecture services with App Architecture.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, board. Next item's on page 24 of your packet is the biweekly report for the sheriff's office. If there's any questions, Sergeant Moore is on the call with us on the team's meeting.
Are there any questions from the board?
Any points of awareness, Sergeant Moore, going into the holiday season for merchants or residents as far as best practices?
Best practices is take your time, and it'll be hectic, obviously, but take your time and proceed cautiously, especially through the construction zones on 35 and in those areas, and the traffic patterns that are changing as well too as they make some progress. So what was working for you on Monday might not be working for you on Wednesday because of the new traffic pattern. So just growing pains, but just everybody slow down and be safe, and hopefully we'll have a safe holiday season.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Dean?
I didn't have any questions. I think I was maybe missing part of the report. I like to see the comparisons from the months and the year, and
That was last meeting?
Oh,
Or
was
it's
it
a
last
monthly
meeting?
report, yeah. The monthly report has the comparison compared to last year at this time.
yeah.
And it also breaks down each month, so.
Okay. I guess I just missed what meeting that is in.
Yeah, so that was last meeting. So the next one, next meeting, you'll have a monthly on
Okay.
December 14th. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
I was off a week.
Yeah.
Sergeant Moore, I just want to thank you for the ability to do a ride-along with you. It was very engaging and interesting. Appreciate you taking the time of the day to lug me around. I did have a question on our warrant. We had canceled on page 47, warrant number 51151 and 51152. I thought we had canceled 51, yet it's appearing in the report.
So if you recall, those are just going to be some from time to time, exceptionally very rare numbers that will happen there. What the dispatcher was trying to do at the time was that she added, I believe, 51, the number ending in 51, and she attached that to the original call. What we like to do in the sheriff's office is separate calls, and the reason we like to do that is that to go in there and look for just that warrant or look for the paperwork that goes to that warrant, we want it to be neat, free, and clear of although it's linked to that traffic stop, it's separate. So if in 2 years we want to look back and try to find where this person was arrested, we might not see that on a traffic stop because maybe they might have been a passenger in that stop or something like that. We want to see it totally separate and be able to run. And not all of the agencies that Green Central dispatches for do it that way. And so she was trying to attach that number to that call, and we wanted to be clear. So I didn't hear the exact numbers that you're saying, but she attached what would have been the next number, and ultimately that's not the case. We wanted a clean number for it to stand on its own, so she had to run and get a new number for the warrant. So it will report that middle number as a warrant, but there are case notes in it for our CAD system saying that it's a voided number.
Okay, because I remember we went through that whole routine on that, and then I see it showing up again. And I thought it was gonna be under a traffic stop instead of a warrant again, so just wanted to.
It's one of those things through dispatching through CAD that it just, once a call is created, it's there, it's permanent, just for transparency, that there can't be deleting of those type of numbers. But with human error, you're gonna have things like that, that'll just have to be voided out and a new number started.
Thank you very much, but thank you for the ability to ride along with you. It was a great experience.
Glad to have you, and anytime, appreciate it.
Human Resources.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 48 of your packet as the biweekly report for HR. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
I had none.
I was just gonna ask, as far as, the integration and implementation of Mango HR, any feedback, good, bad, negative, positive, how's that going, and what are your thoughts?
So far, I have information back from Michelle Rogen. She reached out to our firehouse representative, and so it sounds like that is a possibility. And then Jessica was going to check with Paycor to see if we could have some sort of integration with them. Bayville HR already has some things set up with paychecks, but unfortunately we're not there with them anymore, so we have to go to the IT people to try to have this created for us. But it will, if we are able to do that, it's going to really reduce the amount of work between myself and other members of the township.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I had none.
Thank you for your wishing of a great holiday, and hopefully you and your family will have a great holiday yourself.
Thank you.
COVID-free.
Definitely, fingers crossed.
Okay, moving to community development.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 52 is the biweekly report for the Community Development and Rest Department. There is on page 53 your packet, some additional information different on a report that we've had our intern from Wright State University work on. Normally we would have them come and present, obviously, but under these times I'll turn it over to Randy to explain the information and answer any additional questions about the Community Development and Risk biweekly report.
So Max worked pretty closely with our intern, and he will explain the report that was given to you in the packet. Go ahead, Max.
Sure, thanks, Randy. So what we looked at was several properties north of Fairground Road and in between Trayvine and not Beaver Valley, Beaver Valley Road. And we looked to see basically if there were parcels that could be the site of future residential development. We did this for two reasons. One, we want to see for the schools, we want to help them plan, if at all possible, for additional students. And then we also want to be able to be responsive to developers who, looking for potential places to develop. We can say, hey, look, we have this acreage. We know of no existing plans to develop the parcels we looked at right now, but based on our information, these are the best guesses of where future residential development will occur. I did not include the parcel IDs in this report because we are, again, we don't have any information that suggests these parcels will be for sale or will be developed, so we don't want to cause any undue speculation or anything from either the parcel owners or developers. But looking at, we looked at a couple levels of development. So we took a look at Stonehill Village as a kind of a model. They require 10% of all space be devoted to open space, and they had 3 development levels. They had R1 level, which is 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre, so that's your lower density. R2 is 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre, kind of your mid density, and R3 is between 5 and 8, which is the maximum in the township, 8 dwelling units per acre. So we took a look. We have some total numbers here. We have about 1,071 and a half developable acres that we looked at, and these are the total acreage minus any acreage in the floodplain on the parcels we looked at. And then just taking that, adding a 10% reduction to the total, and then modifying it for the various levels of density. We just got a couple ranges of data to show at various density levels what we could expect in the number of homes if these parcels were developed. It's a theoretical exercise, it's future planning, but not only was it a great project working with the intern to kind of give him some of the experience for urban planning that he was looking for in terms of, why are these parcels potentially developable? Why is it important to know where water and sewer is in the township when you're doing future planning? Things like that is a great project.
Okay, well, thank you. Max, any questions from the board?
That's a huge potential to see in,
Yeah,
in writing. Yeah.
It was a project that, obviously, staff is committed towards other projects they're working on, so it was nice to have an intern in here to provide this information. This is also information that not only helps us plan for the future, but for example, our schools. I did have a meeting today with the superintendent, told him that the report was going to be out. We sent them the biweekly report as well as the county, so they can see the potential impact of some of these parcels that could be converted to residential, and how many houses, depending on what level of density zoning that they're going to be asking for. So, and I get that question a lot, especially when we're out speaking, when I'm speaking on the state of the township, and it's usually related to the schools. How many more homes, because if you go out to the township, you see a lot of farmland that could be developed.
Mm-hmm.
So we identified those, and then we gave them, as Max indicated, we give them, a factor depending on whether water or sewer or both are available to the site.
Max, is there any distinction between the different colors in the chart?
Yeah, so when making the data table up, we took several parcels that were adjacent to one another that we thought would make, a district or a PUD area that made sense. So any color groupings are adjacent parcels that were taken together for their total.
Makes sense.
As like one area.
And then the bottom on the totals, for example, the 1934, what does that represent?
So that's actually a range of data. At the low end is 1 dwelling unit per acre, so that would be 966, and at the high end it would be 1934.
Okay. That makes better sense.
Max, were any of these properties, are they adjacent to an existing conservation easement, or have any of these properties, do any of these properties already have, of the 1,071 acres, do any of them have an existing relationship with the Council Land Trust or another body like that?
So that wasn't an issue, or wasn't an area that we explored off the bat, but I can tell you that 2 of them that we looked at border the Beavercreek, and so they would have some area on them that would not be developable because it's in the floodplain. Whether or not it's in a conservation easement or not, I don't know.
No, No, so when staff made the presentation, Max and the intern made the presentation, none of the parcels on the list currently have easements on them. They're surely close to properties that already hold easements, whether through Tecumseh Land Trust or the Beavercreek Wetlands Association, but none of them had current easements on there that we're aware of. All of them we have to approve, but if it was prior to 10 years ago, I wouldn't know. We'd have to do some research.
Right. No, the question was more, I guess, geared towards if there may not be a floodplain on it, but if they've already entered into a conservation easement, then obviously that would be subtracted from the developable acreage.
Yeah, there are a few farms that we are aware of that have agricultural easements on there that will always be agricultural in nature, and these were not on the list. So, no, what I've asked staff to do is not necessarily have this report, but have a note in the report here on out. So, because we do share this report with the schools in the county, that when we look at the PUD build out, that is what has already been approved by the Board of Township Trustees and the county. But there's to at least have this number of potential. So, for example, we know of 2 other residential builders that are not currently in Beavercreek Township or the Dayton area that have a lot of interest in Beavercreek Township. So, one we've already reached out to and had a meeting with, and another has asked for a meeting in December.
Okay. Max, with regards to R1, R2, R3, the ability to develop those sites into those density levels, would it be possible just in the future to add another maybe column to this spreadsheet that indicates how far water and sewer might be? Because obviously from R3, and R1, would be a stretch without water and sewer. In fact, obviously, probably really couldn't do that without water and sewer. So I'm assuming there's water and sewer available or nearby to all of these sites.
Yeah, so that was information that we looked at. It didn't fit neatly into a data table. It's more qualitative. But yeah, we did take a look at all that information, and you're correct. Most of the sites we are looking at least according to sanitary engineering, would require them to be on septic systems. Water is more available to these sites than sewer. But you're correct. Most of them, I would say about half of these sites are probably only suitable right now for estate-style homes, the 2.5 acre lots. However, many of them are nearby a sewer line, and if a developer, came in and was interested in kind of building the higher density, then it would just be a longer-term discussion with sanitary engineering to how to bring those services to the area.
Okay. And I guess information is power, but it can also be dangerous if it's misinterpreted. So from a standpoint of if we have a parcel, and I know you don't have parcel numbers, and you should not have parcel numbers on here for a lot of good reasons. But if we have a parcel that there is no conceivable way to
Any other questions for community development or risk?
I had nothing additional.
I had a question under a zoning activity. Whoever attended that sustainability roundtable, will we have a presentation, or can we get some information out of that to present to citizens on reducing solid waste tonnage? Was there information that we could pass on to the township people?
Sure, we can do that. I unfortunately attended somewhat. Mr. Amrine attended completely, and we'll try to put together a little presentation for you for the next board meeting or in January.
Or sometime in the future, nothing to push right now, but maybe in 2021, just to give some information to the public.
Sounds great.
I had no other questions.
Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 63 of your packet would be the IT biweekly report. Are there any questions?
I had
Looks
no-
like we're gonna finally get near 100% and switch horses.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for 100% for years.
Yeah, it's always hovered around 90, hasn't it?
Is that attainable? I mean,
100 would be hard, you know, and it's a snapshot. When we do the report, it's a snapshot of the network at the time.
right.
When we run this report, we're all using the network, so, you know, but yeah, I don't think it'll ever be 100, but, and we know what the next report, you'll see something very similar in regards to the ticket on page 64, but, the new vendor may have a different style of report. Well, thank you, Board. If there's no questions, next item is on page 65 of your packet is the biweekly report for the road department. Are there any questions?
And we're not purchasing anything this time around. That's exciting.
I had no additional questions.
I had none.
I had none.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 66 of your packet is a purchase request for data analytics services. Budget justification starts on page 66 with a motion on page 68. Chief Anabos is here, and I believe Chief Dorson's here as well.
Yes.
Looks like Chief Dorson's in the Bahamas or someplace.
It's better looking at the inside of my car.
Are there any questions?
No, I didn't have any questions on this data software.
I had no questions. So I'm a proponent of continuous improvement and tracking and analyzing data. I just always throw the caution from an accreditation standpoint to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze and that we get everything we can out of every dollar we spend on this.
Thank you, Board. There's a motion on page 68 of your packet.
I'll make a motion to approve purchase request 10991 to International Public Safety Data Institute for NFORS data management services in an amount not to exceed $36,000 and authorize the administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item starts on page 66, which is the COVID impact to the community, followed by the biweekly report for the fire department. I'll turn it over to Chief Annenboss if there's any questions or any additional comments from the chief.
I'll just make two quick comments, and that is the reporting format is slightly different with the numbers based off of some changes the county's made and how they're sending us information. Tracking the difference between residences and individuals is no longer feasible. So from now on, we'll just be giving an individual's number and not a residence's number. And then the other thing is similarly tracking our employees. You'll start seeing the number of employees and the number of hours impacted as part of our report, so you know what the internal issues are. If you'd like, we do have the dollar value for that, so you can assign the cost if you'd like to see that, but at least you'll be seeing a count of the number of individuals and the number of hours for it.
Chief, on those hours on 2.3, as far as fire department exposures, is there any way to recoup any of that or charge that back to CARES Act dollars?
Yes, actually, as much of that as you can is being charged back, if I understand correctly. So Mr. Zahir could add any additional detail, but that is the first part of the CARES Act dollars that are going back to the fire department funding.
And if that generates, Mr. Zahir, if that results in overtime, are we able to charge back the overtime or just the straight time?
We can do both. So what we're doing is, in regards to COVID leave, so under the federal law that was passed in April, we exempted all our employees as essential employees from COVID, and then turn around and gave them 80 hours for the regular 40-hour employees, if you will, and then we gave 120 hours that we can go towards for the fire department shifted employees. So we kind of modified and actually bettered the federal law for our employees, because obviously, to me, it didn't make sense, because the number one exemptions are first responders, and the first responders are the ones that are exposed to this a lot greater than some of the other township staff. So we can do that. So that's what I mentioned earlier in the meeting, is we are doing a biweekly report after payroll and updating a spreadsheet, so we can reimburse the funds for those times. So now that is consideration that when it is entered in as overtime, it's related to a COVID leave. If it's not, then it's hard to track, especially, but we're able to at least reimburse the straight time for the employee for any COVID leave in any of the departments through OSL. And we'll have another resolution in a few minutes on the other aspect of it as well.
Okay.
So we'll explain that.
The other question I had, Chief, was on PPE, essentially for your crews and for whoever the township needs them, but ultimately your crews, the first responders. As far as when you look at our burn rate on what we've been burning on a typical month, where do we stand relative to, do we have a 2-month supply, a 3-month supply on hand?
I've asked for that report, I have not gotten it yet. What I was told, essentially anecdotally, was that we're holding our own with PPE right now, so I'm assuming that means that their order receipt is matching the use, but I don't know what sort of gap we have, if we did not get another order, how long we get to operate, but I should have that for you for the next meeting.
Okay, if you could, I think it's just valuable, at least from administrator and from your level, to know that and to monitor that. Not that anything, no one's anticipating a shortage in supply, but obviously if demand spikes, then we want to make sure that we're properly stocked. So,
yes, sir.
thank you.
Any other questions of the chief? All right.
And just one other interesting note, and this goes to the crews and their use of PPE patient treatment, is that none of the cases that we've had where our folks have been exposed has come from patient contact. They've all come from either other employee contact or from contact outside of business. So when they're working with the crews, they're exercising excellent universal precautions, and we've not had any issues that way. And that just goes to the level of training and the type of equipment that the township provides.
That's good to hear.
Chief, just a last final shout out to your crews. They had the unfortunate luxury of spending 5 hours at Miami Valley South with a family member this morning, and went into the emergency, and your crews were coming in as we were heading out, and they had no idea that I was there, but I observed, and they were very professional and how they handle things with the reason why they were there. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
questions on COVID or biweekly?
Yep.
None.
Thank you, board. That's all I have for you.
I thought there's a resolution here, and we're not gonna,
That's under fiscal office.
oh, okay. All right. Legal advisor.
Not on, she's
You're
on, in
on.
court.
Fiscal officer, Mr. Rushing. I take it
Thank
from
you. Yes, thank you, board. For your consideration this evening is a resolution declaring that public safety personnel is substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. As the board will recall, we have received 3 installments of the CARES Act through the Greene County Auditor. Total to date, we have received $377,629.90. These funds can only be used for prescribed items as outlined in U.S. Treasury guidance. Among those are the common items directly in response to the pandemic, personal protective equipment, items that increase social distancing, teleworking, infrastructure improvements to facilities to mitigate interaction between the public and staff. But also among the approved items is to use funds for public safety personnel. The U.S. Treasury does designate public safety personnel as inherently dedicated 100% to the mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we have seen in the biweekly reports, this is not only true to all staff, but it's especially true to our men and women in the fire department. What we're attempting to do with this resolution is to just certify that yes, we are in agreement with the U.S. Treasury guidance, as well as the guidance from the Ohio Office of Management and Budget, as well as an opinion from the Greene County Prosecutor's Office, that we can utilize CARES Act funding to support and offset any wages from our public safety personnel. What we'll do is as Mr. Zaharieff has mentioned, is do a final accounting after we have purchased all the direct items in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, and any balance of that final accounting will be reimbursed to the funds that have personnel under COVID-19 leave, and then any balance from there will be offset in the fire fund. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
No questions.
And board, since it was in the packet, you could just pass the motion as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution finding that public safety personnel are substantially dedicated to mitigating and responding to COVID-19 public health emergency as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Okay. Moving on to our meetings, MVRPC reported, we already had that meeting, so reported it already. MVRPC Technical Advisory,
I believe it's this week. It's not, if not, it's the week after Thanksgiving, all right?
okay. Regional Planning and Coordinating,
Executive committee met last week, and we had, there was no Beavercreek Township matter on the agenda, but we did actually, it was a New Jasper Township item that was on the agenda, and it was relative to automated covers on swimming pools in lieu of fences. And so a similar case, essentially a similar situation that we dealt with as a board
Thank you. Health Department?
I spoke about that meeting, our previous meeting. I said we won't have another one until 1st of December.
Thank you. The school superintendent and city manager?
I met with the superintendent today. Obviously, one thing we did talk about was we didn't meet with, our joint meetings like we normally do with city council and schools. So we talked about some time next year, hopefully after the vaccine gets out to the community and getting those back up. We also talked, obviously, about COVID-19 and the impacts on local jurisdictions and school. And then city manager meeting is a week from Wednesday.
Thank you. Right, Pat, they haven't opened yet?
Yep.
Township Association, we had the meeting the following day, and I was elected president of Greene County Township Association, so.
Congratulations.
Would be representing Beavercreek Township. Investment Oversight Committee?
I have nothing new to report.
Okay. Thank you. Is any trustee want to make any comments at this time? Okay. Then we'll move into.
Ms. Wallace, I just had one comment. It was actually relative to the PPE question that I asked previously. Mr. Zahari, as far as our road department and even our community risk and just making sure that obviously we look from a first responder standpoint, but make sure that if you can just take a look at our stockpiles and make sure that we're adequately stocked for our road department. Any of those in our zoning and community risk and development group, any of those folks that are out working with businesses, working with developers, builders, constructions, crews, et cetera, and homeowners.
Yeah, we have definitely enough masks for office staff, and then obviously extras. Sometimes we have residents who don't come in with masks, so we'll provide them as well. We also have face shields for both the fire department and road department, and those can be washable. So, for example, the road staff was working in the admin offices today and had their face shields ready in case they came in close contact with any other employees.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kretz. Executive session.
Sure. I make a motion to move to executive session under Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1, to consider the employment of a public employee, and under the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G2, to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding, if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair, competitive, or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest. No member of a public body shall use Division G2 of this section as subterfuge for providing covert information to prospective buyers or sellers. A purchase or sale of public property is void if the seller or buyer of the public property has received covert information from a member of the public body that has not been disclosed to the general public in sufficient time for other prospective buyers and sellers to prepare and submit offers.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes. All right. We're coming out of executive session. I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to come out of executive session at 7:01 p.m.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes.